What's going on, everybody? Welcome to TRAK 26, the Lightskin War, Volume 2. I'm your host, The Rook, and I'm joined by the analysts, and we're bringing it to you straight, shatter the script, every Wednesday. And boy, is today a good day. Today is a fantastic day. And why is that, Ryan? Why are we in a great mood today?
Well, that's an easy answer, Jared. We're smoking on that Eagles pack again.
That's correct.
The bird killer loaded his shotgun up and took him down in Dallas. So
that's right. He loaded up his bird shot and he started firing some rounds, two touchdowns for Dak Prescott, which we'll get into later in the episode per usual. We're going to have our TRAK ranking segment, our top 3 Christmas movies lined up for you guys. Shatter the script to start it off. Moving into the the analyst's 2-minute drill with some gameplay analysis, and of course all the rest of the fixings. So we're in for a good one, and we're excited for this December because we've got some great ball left to play for the Dallas Cowboys. But without further ado, let's get into the Shatter the Script segment, brought to you by us, the TRAK podcast. So let's get it. This is the Dak Prescott commercial from Twitter.
As a professional quarterback, I get a lot of shit.
Indecisiveness in the red zone.
Most overrated quarterback.
Got more turnovers than a bake sale!
And I get it. When you're not a fan of something, shitting on it can make you feel good. But what if I told you that now it can do some good too? Let me show you how. First, if you're 45 or older, talk to your doctor about getting screened for colon cancer. Then, if you're prescribed a home screening kit like this, grab the sample collection container and place a sticker of something you want to shit on right on the underside. Not a fan of marine life? Slap it on. Have issues with old-timey prospectors? Boom. It works with anything from colors to large American predatory birds. Then, follow the instructions on collecting and shipping your sample.
Here we go!
And in about 2 weeks, you'll have the results. It's that easy to get screened for colon cancer and make your feelings abundantly clear. So talk to your doctor today.
Home screening kits like Cologuard are for people 45 or older at average risk, not for high-risk people like Dak. Dak actually wouldn't use a home test kit, but he's so committed to preventing people from getting colon cancer that he agreed to star in this video we wrote for him without any concern for his safety. I definitely deserve that. Visit leadfrombehind.org to get more information and some stickers we made.
There you go. Fantastic video there from Dak Prescott and co, including Ryan Reynolds, I guess. I did not think was going to be in this video. But yeah, I mean, what's funny about this Shatter the Script clip is, one, this isn't such an impressive commercial. I mean, he basically said everything that we would have said, because sounds like an ESPN segment. It's like, yeah, you want to shit on somebody? Well, guess what? You know, you can put your name right on this thing and you can shit on whoever you want to make yourself feel better. And I tell you who would love that sort of material on that product. And I'm not saying that he should have whatever's in the commercial. I'm just saying this product in general for shitting is Shady McCoy and Joy Taylor. Those are 2 great candidates to slap a sticker of Dak Prescott on the bottom of it and just shit on it. So this is an impressive commercial. What were your thoughts on this commercial?
my first thought wasn't it ironic that he said even large American predatory birds and slapped an eagle on there?
Oh,
and
yeah.
then he went out and did what he had to do against the Eagles, and then the dolphin in there as well. So, but it's a perfect commercial for Dak because he's like, he's the number one. He always gets shit on. So it's just a perfect commercial to start Dak in, and it was perfectly timed with this week as well. So
yeah. And that's even going into the gauntlet as well, which I think is hilarious. I mean, it could have been more perfect marketing timing from what they're doing. And it was for a good cause too, so they can't criticize it. So, I mean, the video speaks for itself. This was, I mean, I know I'm a Dak stan and a Dak disciple, but this video, like, I was laughing out loud. I was like, wow, like this is exactly the kind of content I want to hear from like Dak Prescott. The amount of slander that he takes as a starting quarterback with the star on the side of his helmet. So, all right, let's move on directly into the 2-minute drill presented by the analyst, which we're going to have some in-game play analysis, some statistical records and stuff, which we'll split in the middle. That stats will come first. And then once we get into that stat or that play-by-play analysis, it'll move us directly into the NFL Week 14 recap with the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Without further ado, the analysts, go ahead and start your mark.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Usually this is Jacob's part right here at the beginning. I wish Jacob, the medical guy, was here to give his little spill on the injury reports, because there's been some interesting injuries, particularly towards the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill, and then kind of some lingering ones out there from like Trevor Lawrence and how they're doing. But I am the analyst, so I am the stat guy. So I am not bringing that to the table. But we'll go ahead and get started with some stats, and then we're going to roll right into a video of the controversial call that was made in the Chiefs-Bills game, but I will break that play down. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Zeke Fat-Ass Elliott, fat-ass question mark. 22 carries, 68 yards with 7 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown. This is a huge game for the Patriots in just a season that doesn't matter. But, even though I've said my piece about Zeke, it's always kind of nice to see that he's still got it every once in a while. Yeah. He had a great game on Thursday night, and he helped the Patriots win, I think, their 3rd game. They're just a mess. And then the next up, and the other thing I was going to say about this is I have a lot of guys on here that we don't ever really mention. So
that's good.
this season this particular week had a lot of names that just kind of popped out of nowhere. So the next one is Zach, I don't want to play Wilson. I mean, there's been all these reports out that he didn't want to play this year or play this week. It was almost like he was crying about wanting to play for the Jets. And then he went out there and threw for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Texans, who have a pretty good defense. And they handle the Texans pretty well. Another guy that we need to worry about is C.J. Stroud. He's on the concussion protocol, so hopefully he's all right. Next up, Desmond Ridder. I mean, we never mentioned Desmond Ridder. He had 347 yards, a touchdown, and an interception with an L. And, I mean, we've been saying this season he has been just atrocious to watch just because the Falcons, I mean, they have every piece they need.
Right.
But it's sad that they lost. But, I mean, he also threw for 347 yards. In that same game, Rachaad White had 25 carries, 100 yards for the Bucs. I mean, he popped off. And then shout out, and Drake London too. A quick shout out to a Sam Houston State grad. I actually have my hoodie on right now. That's just coincidence. Zion McCollum led the Bucs in tackles. He was a former teammate of mine. He was a dog at Sam Houston, a lockdown corner. He had 2 PBUs as well. Next, I have Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Jake Browning. He has had some very strong outings in the last couple of weeks, and he is keeping that Bengals playoff hope alive right now. 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I mean, last week he had like 3-something against the Jags, and they won that game, and he looked like an all-star. So, I mean, he's been playing pretty good. And the next thing I have on here is the Rams-Ravens game. We will not be recapping this game, but I got to tell you, there were some major numbers in this game, like Lamar Jackson. We can touch
on it if we need to. Absolutely. I mean, it was a good game.
It was a good game. This game went into overtime. Pretty sure the Rams won, or the Ravens won 37-31. But Lamar had 316 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, and 70 yards on the ground. OBJ making a name for himself again, 4 receptions, 97 yards, and a touchdown. And then on the other side of the ball, you had Kyron Williams, 25 carries, 114 yards. Stafford had 294 with 3 touchdowns. Kupp finally coming alive. I know a lot of fantasy managers, including me, have been waiting for this moment, and it's already too late because the playoffs are here, and I missed it. 8 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. And then Puka Nacua with 5 receptions and 84 yards. Shout out to Puka Nacua, man. I said that when Kupp came back, he had basically disappeared, but I think he's been more productive than Kupp has this year, and that might just be because Kupp has some lingering injuries.
Yeah.
Now we will move into the video of the week, or as I'm going to start calling it, the All-22 Film Room with the analysts. So, I'm going to add this to the stage here. Let me see. Jared, can you see that playing?
Yeah, we can see it. It's all good. Yep.
All righty. So here you go. This is the controversial call, but we're going to go ahead and break down the play for you. So Chiefs come out in a bunch set. You got 3 receivers to the left, 1 up top. It's 12 personnel, so you can see that inside bunch guy is actually another tight end. You got Kelsey on the far side, and then you've got Kadarius Toney, this is the call, clearly offsides. There's no question about that. But what I wanted to point out here is Bills are in man down front with a wide open A gap. As you can see, there is nobody lined up in the A. So right away, Patrick Mahomes, being a pretty dang good quarterback, notices that and says, hey guys, we've got a bunch of guys on the left side of the line here. We got 2 guys on the right taking up the outside shade of the tackle and the guard. There's going to be somebody coming right down the A gap, probably this linebacker that you can see is already moving straight to the line of scrimmage. So Creed Humphrey, being one of the best centers in the NFL, in my opinion, he's young, but he's really good. He's going to call and I'm going to click play and stop. You can see that guy's coming up the A gap. So what they do is they call slide left and man-to-man on the right, and they identify that blitzer as Mike. So what they did was that running back is going to pick up that blitzer, and the line's going to slide left.
Right.
To start the play. And you get a nice little check on Von Miller from the tight end, and that's going to allow Kelsey to catch this thing over the middle. And with all that blocking, they pick it up perfect time. They give Mahomes plenty of time to throw this ball. And now this is where I'm not sure what this is. I don't know if this is designed or what that is, but I mean, that's a crazy call. I don't know if Kelsey meant to do that or if that was a part of the play. But this play was completely negated because, I mean, you can see from where they just circled right there that he is across the line of scrimmage. His helmet is essentially on the ball, which means his foot is offsides. I mean, to me, this has to be called, and especially in like a game like this. They've been saying for a while that, you know, this call's been coming up more and more throughout the season.
Yeah.
Over the last couple seasons. But, I mean, this has to be called. You know, I get Mahomes through his little pity party, but you have to call that. But anyway, we'll watch that play one more time, watch it all come together in live. You'll watch that line slide, get the check. You'll watch the running back pick him up, and then Kelsey's running free over the middle. So it was a great play design by Andy Reid and co. And you could see Kelsey's wide open. So it's just a wild play. I don't think that was designed at all. I wanted
to see it again.
Playing on his feet.
Yeah, I wanted to see it again right there in real time, like he had it played, and you could tell his eyes weren't working its way over there. He was clearly trying to get up the field and find the best juke available. It wasn't until he broke that second tackle that he happened to look over there and find the perpetrator, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and you see Kadarius Toney down here just like not even paying attention, but he cuts out of the screen. He's not looking for the ball until Kelsey kind of looks up. So to me, I don't think that was designed. I think that was just actually a baller heads up play from Kelsey.
And we've seen
that play broke down right there. So
yeah, and that was awesome. Appreciate you doing that. It's always nice hearing the offensive line, assignments as well, and being able to read where pressure's generating from. So that was awesome. But, to get into this recap, we'll transition into the Week 14 recap with, of course, the Bills winning 20-17 versus the Chiefs. I just wanted to say this isn't the first time we've seen something like this from Travis Kelce, but the last one looked extremely intentional. This one looked like Taylor Swift's in the stands, and I'm going to impress my girlfriend that's here and chunk this bitch to the left side. But if it doesn't work, who knows what's going to happen to Travis Kelce after the game. But yeah, I mean, I'll let you take over on the recap as well, because I know you're covering this one. But like I said, Buffalo escapes with the victory because of this penalty, 20-17.
Yeah, and the couple notes I have on this game is there is a lot of outside noise before this game. I mean, you had Von Miller being able to play or not play. You had Sean McDermott using hijackers from 9/11 in a pregame speech. And then you had the playoff implications that came into this game. You know, Bills got to keep winning to stay alive. Chiefs got to stay in the hunt for the first seed. You know, and then there's the classic Allen versus Mahomes that everybody's been talking about. But that's kind of where this starts is like, if you remember the championship game between these two a couple of years ago, you know, this is almost exactly how this game played out. Both quarterbacks are playing really good. Allen, I think, had like, let me pull that up. Allen had, I think, 230 yards passing. But, I mean, there's a couple plays in there. That one, I think y'all were over at the house already, where he was stepping back out of almost the out of bounds and just tossed that thing on 3rd and 10 and made a perfect throw. And then, you know, Mahomes is being Mahomes. He played really well. He had 271 in the air, had 1 interception. But I think the name of the game of this was exactly, like I said, the championship game. The Bills had the ball. They go down and they kick a field goal with 1:40 left. And I know that McDermott is shaking in his boots because they're standing on the sideline with 1:40 to go. And I know he's got PTSD from that championship game. And it almost ended up that way, but that penalty cost the Chiefs the game. And then you watch, you know, Mahomes and everybody afterwards.
Yeah, that's my favorite
freaking out on the side, or like, I mean, it was just bad. He looked like, I get being mad and all that, and like everybody's like, oh, he handled it accordingly, but he went to the midfield to Josh Allen and basically bitched in Josh Allen's face, like,
this is
hey,
exactly
that was a dumb call, like.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He said,
that was the worst fucking call I've ever seen in my entire life. Travis Kelce was wide open. That was a fantastic play. But it's fucking bullshit. I mean, when is this stuff going to stop me for the NFL and for my kids?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Mahomes, do you know how many times I've watched the game where Mahomes have like walked over the ref, you know, in his little petty walk? He's always walked and jogged like,
what the hell?
You're freaking weirdo. So, you know, he's had a lot of calls go his way. But, I mean, like I said earlier while we were recapping that play, that was clearly offsides. His helmet's over the line. His foot is over the ball. Like, if you're a line judge and you're looking at that, you have to call that. So, like, that's the name of the game. If you're down on it's kind of like if the Eagles were down on a tush push. Like, and you got helmets over the line like they did against Dallas, you have to call it. So, it's like, that's the name of the game. So
that's something I want to. You made a good point there because I can't remember what show it was on, but they said that play when they came on NBC on Sunday Night Football during our halftime show when we were spanking that ass, they brought in the expert or whatever and was like, this play actually offsides has actually been called like 11 times in comparison to 2 times before. And then I think it was Nick Wright that said, actually, that's a fallacy. That's an inflation of a point there. Yes, they have, but the majority of those calls, a large majority of those calls that he's talking about were on tush push plays where, and it was called in the game versus Cowboys and Eagles on a tush push where an offensive lineman was offside. So that's a fabricated thing, and it's just trying to protect the ass of the NFL. Why would the networks backstab them publicly, you know? But seeing this game and the way it goes, I mean, Twitter came prepared. When Mahomes was yapping about all this crap, they have an entire thread out there in case any of you people are – and we're not Mahomes haters. We said on pod number 1, me and the Rook and the Kid said debate with the closet door if you don't think Mahomes is the best in the NFL. And I still believe that. I'm just saying there's an entire thread of like 48 plays from I think this year alone that's on Twitter somewhere of every call that bailed out Patrick Mahomes. The Jets game specifically comes to mind, and I'm just like, but the last note I have on this is like speaking on Mahomes, it speaks to like a team play, and that's kind of the last point I have on this is like how much longer are the Chiefs just going to sit there and not go get a wide receiver 1 for Mahomes? Like I think that Kelce is good, but Kelce is also getting older and he's a tight end. Like you need some outside threats that are not 5'8" and running down the sidelines, or Scatling that's dropped multiple balls that would win Chiefs games that Mahomes put perfectly in his hands. And then they've had some shit calls like
that should have been a PI against the Packers last week on that deep ball from Mahomes. That was a great throw. But, Tony's cost them a couple games with some drops, and now this offside penalty. Scotling's cost them a couple games with him dropping the ball. I mean, I think they still lead the league in drops right now. And it's like, Kelsey can't do it all. Like, Kelsey's a great tight end, like I said, but, he's a tight end.
He's 33 years old.
Yes. So, I mean, he was contemplating retirement this past offseason, or at least there were some reports out there about him being like, I saw a quote from him this year that was like, hey, like my body hurts from, I think he said 10 surgeries he's had. So, it's getting to the point now for him where it's like, he's probably starting to think about retirement. So, I don't know. Lucky for the Chiefs, though, there is a lot of opportunity to go get a receiver in the offseason. You've got a lot of receivers that are coming up on contract years that are either, a little bit older, that are still good, like Devontae Adams and or like T. Higgins, who's going to come up on a contract. And, they're going to have to pay Jamar Chase over T. Higgins. So,
yeah, absolutely. That's the name I was going to highlight. We'll move on into the Jaguars versus the Browns game. This was kind of a big one in the AFC especially for seeding. But the Browns came out of this game 31-27. And man, I got to tell you, I was kind of asking myself, is Flacco the perfect veteran replacement for the Browns? And, after the game that I saw this past Sunday, yeah, I think he's perfect. I mean, you give a guy with an outstanding defense like the Cleveland Browns, you just put a comprehensible, veteran in there to just get the balls in the hands of your playmakers. Good things are going to happen. And Joe Flacco isn't unaccustomed to this either. He actually won a Super Bowl, like we all know, with as the MVP of that Super Bowl, with a dominating defense and him just doing enough. Doing his part on offense, not turning over the football, being efficient, getting the balls to your playmakers and whatnot. This is a perfect sign. And if they went out and signed somebody like RG3, you'd be sitting there down 31-16 to Trevor Lawrence, even if Trevor Lawrence threw 3 picks like he did in this game, which kind of brings me to Trevor Lawrence, who's, not having an incredible season. We talked a lot before, even off the record, me and the kid, and I know he hasn't been on in a while, but he would probably, want to comment on something like this. But, Trevor Lawrence, man, we hyped him up all year about having Ridley finally getting a number 1, and they looked unstoppable week 1. And just throughout the season, he's had these weird games where you're getting 2+ interceptions and less touchdowns in the game. And, he got blown out by the Texans earlier in the season. It's just a very, I don't want to say disappointing, because it's not like his stats are awful, but if you're really watching the games, I've watched a couple of Jaguars games, I'm just not really impressed. I'm just not the most impressed with him, but he has been a warrior this year. I think they can improve their protection on the Jaguars. ETN has been Etienne has been a great beneficiary to their offense as well. Christian Kirk, who I want to say, I guess an agenda I was right about last year. I said he's a high-end wide receiver too. He's a very serviceable guy coming into this year. It was like we're about to find out the spread between a number 1 and number 2 and why Christian Kirk wasn't very serviceable. Well, this year he's been way more impressive than Calvin Ridley, especially against man coverage. And the last thing I'll say is, was Evan Ingram and David Njoku having a tight end competition of a lifetime here? I mean, they both had 2 touchdowns in this game. And you look, and it was, 11 receptions, 95 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Evan Ingram, and then 6 receptions, 91 yards, and 2 touchdowns for David Njoku. I mean, it's like, and Evan Ingram hasn't scored all year, so it must have been personal. Somehow, some way.
It's a get-right game.
Yeah, a little get-right game. But, hey, the Browns, they could find themselves, playing some good football in the playoffs with a veteran that's been there before. And I'm excited to see what they can do. And, what looks good on paper is Amari Cooper had 14 targets. So, great win.
Yeah, the only 2 notes I had for this game is, one, I think you're a little bit right on Trevor Lawrence. I think he needs more protection. He's got the weapons, but I'll also give him the pass on this game because I think he was still dealing with that ankle. So That was one of the things I had. And then number 2, I had the tight end off. Yeah, that was crazy. I saw a stat that there was 20-something touchdowns scored this week by tight ends, and that's like the most in this season, I think, this season and like in the last 5 years. So but Evan Ingram was a great tight end. He was pretty good on the Giants too. They just had to get rid of him because of basically the rebuild they went through. But
because their quarterback wasn't doing a good job getting Evan Ingram the ball is what it appears to be the issue over there.
Just like Darren Waller, he couldn't get Darren Waller the ball either.
And Tommy DeVito's 3-1 as a starting quarterback over there for the New York Giants when Daniel Jones is 1-5. But
the other thing I was going to say is I think you're right with the Browns. I think they have a good chance in the playoffs. One, because the AFC is filled with injured quarterbacks now.
Yeah.
But their defense is just rock solid. Their defense is really good.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. All right, next game. We have was it Seattle versus San Francisco, right? Or is it the other?
No, it's
Chicago.
Bears Lions. Yeah, so Bears 28, Lions 13. This is an interesting game right here. Granted, it is divisional. They're both in the NFC North. But the name of the game here, Jared Goff and the Lions struggled against the Bears defense. I mean, what in the world? Jared Goff had 20 for 35, 160 yards, a touchdown, but he threw 2 interceptions, was sacked 4 times. Lions only went 6 of 15 on third downs, 3 total turnovers, Goff's 2 picks, like I mentioned, and then a fumble from Graham Glasgow. I don't even know who that is. But I think the other thing for the Lions, and this will, as we go down, you'll kind of see where I'm going with this, and Jared already knows, but the Lions defense is a problem. I mean, they are not good. They are not a good defense. They played pretty good defense at the beginning of the year, but these last couple, like 4, 5, 6 games, they've been getting absolutely shredded by teams that they just have no business getting shredded by. I mean, they let the Saints score like 28 points on them. The Saints, we've been talking about the Saints all year and how bad that offense has just been not being able to click. But the Bears have not been able to get much going through the season. And it just, like I said, it seems like whoever the Lions play right now is just cooking. So, I mean, the Bears, who have been notorious for horrible offense, had 340 yards of offense with no turnovers and own time of possession.
Yeah.
So they had the ball longer. They converted more third downs. They had 340 yards against a team that's 9-3. Well, now I think 9-4. So fraud alert. Now that's where I'm going with this. Fraud alert. I do think the Lions are frauds. I do. I said earlier this year that they have the easiest schedule of all the top teams in the NFC. When we were talking about a couple podcasts ago, we were talking about we were running through who we thought the NFC leaders would be. I literally said on the podcast that the Lions have the easiest schedule and they're going to be one of the top seeds in the NFL.
Yeah.
Or in the NFC. Well, now that narrative has completely changed. So when you look at the last 4 games, they barely beat the Bears on a comeback win 4 weeks ago.
That's the week that you said it, I believe. The week that you said it, that's what the game. Yeah.
They lost to the Packers. They got way up on the Saints in the first quarter. They scored 21 points in the first quarter and then lost that lead and almost blew the game. And then now they've just lost to the Bears. So you're looking at 4 teams there. Arguably, I think the Packers are kind of heating up. But you're looking at 4 teams there that, like, the Lions should have just gone in and taken care of business and left.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no doubt. And I will say that, if like you said, it was the easiest schedule out there. And on paper, it looked like they were just going to run through it. And, of course, Thanksgiving came around and those games you mentioned. But if they won the games they were supposed to win, they'd be probably 11-2 right now with the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah. I mean, if you just give them one of the Packers or Bears games, they would be clinched right now. I'm pretty sure they'd be in the playoffs because that's one of those games is a divisional win. So they haven't even wrapped up their division yet. You've got granted, I think they probably will, but the only real threat to them is probably the Packers. But it's just wild that they have this such easy schedule and they started off so hot and now it's like they're just burning out.
Yeah, one could say it's classic Lions franchise football, but then at the same time, I guess their struggles are in the regular season when the Cowboys could be in the playoffs. But yeah, that's
question,
a brutal game.
Yeah, the real question that they're going to have to answer is Jared Goff going to be the face of that franchise, or was he a good bridge quarterback to where they feel like they can go get somebody else?
Well, they have somebody else. That's the thing. They have
Hendon Hooker, right?
Yeah, and so he could be that next guy. We don't know, but I think ride out the rest of Jared Goff's contract. By the time he'll be like 33, 34 years old, he'll just be like a rental bridge quarterback for some other team. Possibly go back to the Rams. No, but yeah, Hendon Hooker could be the answer over there. You'd have to ask a Lions fan. I haven't heard much news about Hendon Hooker since the end of the league. But yeah, I mean, moving on into the San Francisco versus the Seattle game. San Francisco comes out of this game 28-16. Honestly, throughout this game, I was highly impressed with Drew Lock's play. There aren't many quarterbacks that put up those kinds of numbers against the San Francisco 49ers, although they only scored 16 points. I mean, he came out that first half kind of firing. I mean, why not? I mean, you haven't played in a while. The narrative against you is that you haven't written back yet, and he comes back in here and, he puts on a great show, at least, to keep it close with San Francisco. And,
it kind of fizzled out in the second half, though.
Yeah, I mean, completely stalled in the second half. And I think that was just kind of like your typical halftime adjustments to the quarterback you didn't really prepare for, because Drew Lock had his first practice on Friday, leading into the Sunday's game. So we really didn't have much time to game plan. You're probably game planning for Geno Smith. So maybe that's why that first half was kind of wacky. But, I will say, going into this game, Deebo Samuel shattered the script, if you will, on, his ability to make plays down the field. And this is the first time in 4 seasons we've been able to see it. But he did a fantastic job. He had a fantastic game. And since he's came back from his injuries, I think he's averaging over 15 or 16, PPR points a game. And he's won some playoff berth spots in fantasy football. And I tell you what, you want to say him or Trent Williams, either of them missing, causing the woes for Brock Purdy. I would have to argue it's probably closer to Deebo. I don't know why, but when he's in that game, you have fresh legs as a running back and a utility player, and you have a threat at the line of scrimmage that can get you 25 plus yards just by catching it at the line, and that's a great valuable asset to have.
He's just a hidden weapon, and with everything they've got between Ayuk, Kittle, and McCaffrey, I mean, somebody's going to have to guard Deebo, and it's kind of like a pick your poison. So
yeah, exactly. And every 49ers player has their own role that they do completely different than the other role of the other players next to him. I mean, Kittle has his deal where he's blocking down as that 6-down lineman, chipping, and then finding, that option route in the middle of the field. And, Ayuk's that gash route runner on the outside that, might deserve more targets, to quote a friend of mine. But, at the same time, that's not their scheme. It's just – but, I will say, this team here – I wanted to put this out there because Purdy's in that MVP conversation, and I can't stand it because, and it's not because I don't like Brock Purdy, it's because he is not the engine that makes that offense run. It has always been interchangeable with whoever you put at quarterback, that they're going to win games when they're healthy because they have an arsenal of an Armageddon type of roster where it's just like doomsday when you walk in. And if Sam Darnold was the quarterback, if Cooper Rush was the quarterback, you'd have the same kind of team. You're riding on that defense and you're working the scheme. And I think that's credit to Kyle Shanahan. It always has. I feel like I sound like a broken record talking about that sort of stuff. But for them to say, I don't care what they say about Brock Purdy. I've watched his games and I know where he's throwing the ball. I know what his passing charts look like, regardless of, those sporadic outbursts that are in there. You're like, well, what about this? We're like, well, the majority of the time he's throwing at the line of scrimmage. The engine of that offense is Christian McCaffrey, and the engine of the team is that defense, in my opinion. So, great win for 49ers. This is what we expected. We weren't shocked, but just because it has major playoff implications and that Seattle has dropped every single game of its gauntlet so far, leading into a Philadelphia game Philadelphia is pissed off. they could very well end up missing the playoffs. So we'll see. But all right, well, that wraps up our NFL Week 14 recap. We're going to move into our track ranking of the week with our top 3 Christmas movies. Of course, you got number 3 at gold, 2 your platinum, and your highest rank is your diamond. And we'll start with the analysts, and we'll just interchange through each category as we move on. But yeah, top 3 Christmas movies for your ranking of the week. What's your gold ranking?
All right. Well, I always include an honorable mention just because I always feel like it's necessary.
That's fine.
But my honorable mention is the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie from
Old ass
1965. And then you can put like the Slash, any of those old movies. I mean, when you grew up, we were all watching these type of movies on the Hallmark Channel always.
Yeah, ABC 25 Days of Christmas.
Yep, and I mean they had all of them playing throughout our childhood. But my gold ranking, and this is going to be pretty basic, but Elf. I think you always have to include Elf on a Christmas movie ranking. They are. Yeah. I mean, this is always on TV. I mean, you probably could go turn on my TV right now, and it's on the TV. It's always around for Christmas. It's a funny movie, never gets old. So I'm going to go with my gold ranking of Elf.
Yeah. That's you're probably completely correct. Like if we turn on our TVs right now and looked on our service provider, it's like Elf right there, and then the movie after it, Elf. You know,
yeah.
Gosh. All right.
On a rerun.
Exactly. My gold is actually a trilogy. It's the Santa Claus trilogy.
I almost had that one.
It's the one with Tim Allen. I thought I'd do it justice because I probably watch it every year. Tim Allen's an underrated actor who's got a great sense of humor. But you rewatch his movies now and you're like, man, I used to thought these movies were not cheesy one bit. And, you see Bernard running around, whatever the hell that little elf's name is. And you're just like, ugh, like what is going on here? But, what a great trilogy there. I believe they just made a new one on Disney Plus. I think I watched that at my office or something like that. But so that's mine. That's Santa Claus is by with Tim Allen starring. All right, and then your diamond.
All right, hold on. I was trying to see if it was actually on my TV, and it's not. It airs tomorrow. So
yeah.
All right. You mean my platinum, right?
Yeah. Sorry, platinum.
My platinum, me and Jared. I already know it. We're probably gonna have a pretty close list here, but my platinum is Polar Express. It's partially because me and my family have always watched this movie. One, when we were kids, there's so many quotes that we throw out that are inside jokes from it that we still laugh at today. But also only because, like, when me and Jared, when our family would put up our Christmas tree come around December 1st, 2nd, right after Thanksgiving, we would always pop the CD in of Polar Express. And, as we were putting up our tree, we'd watch it as a family. So a little bit of sentimental value for me from this movie, but it's also a great movie. It never gets old.
Yeah.
Every Christmas we still watch it. So me and my wife actually kept that tradition alive as we put up our tree this year. So it kind of runs through the family. So Polar Express is my platinum. Jared, what do you got for platinum?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Actually, that was my platinum as well. Is the Polar Express. It never gets old. It's like you said, we have that tradition. You're putting up all your ornaments and stuff on the tree. And we actually had this cool tradition where every year, especially when we were younger, we would try and find an NFL player ornament. I mistakenly got Ben Roethlisberger during his lawsuit. But we've got LaDainian Tomlinson ornaments. We've got Michael Strahan ornaments. We've got Tony Romo, Jason Witten. I mean, you name it. We were always grabbing these NFL players.
Somehow, some way, Eli Manning ended up on our freaking Christmas tree. I always look at it when somebody pulls out of the box, and I'm like, disgusting.
Yeah, you just
who got
that? Who the hell? Yeah, his arm's broken. Oh, wouldn't you know it? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the one that always gets me excited is the LaDainian Tomlinson one, because I'm pretty sure all three of us have it.
Yeah.
And the LT, that boy it's a cool looking ornament too. But yeah, I mean, just the all aboard, him, his robe getting torn on the bottom of it, the what's it called, the puppet scene, used to creep me out as a kid. Like just you're a Scrooge, you know. I'm like, God. But great movie, even though it's made by a pedophile. But all right, your diamond ranking.
Well, I'm sure this isn't going to fall far from your list again, but my diamond ranking is The Muppets Christmas Carol. And that is also because it is sentimental to my family. Every Christmas Eve, we watch two versions, either one of the two versions of the Christmas Carol. We either watch Carrie's version, A Christmas Carol from Disney, or we watch Muppets Christmas Carol. And like Jared said on the last podcast we did, it is they do the great job on the Muppets Christmas Carol. I mean, they do a great job of telling the story. They make it kind of funny. I mean, it's good. So there's a lot of comedy, but it's like, you know, you're still getting the Christmas Carol story in this movie. And like Jared said, they make a hell of a production on the musical too. I mean, it's well done. It's very well done. So
yeah, and Bob Cratchit. I mean, you got to. Where's Kermit's Oscar? That's what I want to know. I mean, that dude killed it as Bob Cratchit. You know, I was very proud of Kermit in that movie. He did a fantastic job. Mine is actually the Jim Carrey's version of the Christmas Carol as my diamond, just because we quote from that movie more than probably any other Christmas movie, and it's because of Jim Carrey. I mean, that dude plays the role perfectly. And I think Tiny Tim always gets me because, you know, I want to make fun of the little bastard so bad, just walking down that street. And he's like, the monster down in school, like crumpets and blah, blah. And he's like, you're just like, yeah, whatever, kid, sit down. And, you know, you're going to eat this poor ass meal that we got for Bob. Bob Cratchit's been working 80 hours a week, and you're here bitching about we can't get bread or not.
8 hours a week at the accounting job with no call.
With no call. And he's freezing his ass off. And then just Jim Carrey, like we always the jokes we always make where we bugger it. So it's a fantastic movie. But I cannot leave this ranking without the vibranium ranking. And my vibranium ranking is the Muppets Christmas Carol. It's in there. Just there's
love is in the air.
You know, just that Kermit's performance in there needs an Oscar, like I was mentioning before. And it's a beautiful story. Charles Dickens does a great job. And I couldn't be more excited for Christmas coming up to turn that on with a nice whiskey drink around the fire and being around family. You know, God, family, and football. That's what we care about. And the Muppets, for fuck's sake. But, so excellent rankings there. And let's move into our predictions.
Well, hold on. I almost put in Die Hard because everybody argues that's not a Christmas movie, but that is a Christmas movie. And in fact, it is a great movie. So Die Hard is.
I almost put that in there as a joke. Yeah, I almost did that just to make this controversial statement. So thank you. Is that your vibranium?
No, it's not better than the Muppets Christmas Carol. Like I said, hell of a production.
Hell of a production. Deserves an Oscar. Okay. Week 15 predictions. Let's start off with our first one, which is going to be sorry, I'm all over the place. It was our Sunday night football game, the Ravens versus the Jaguars. Obviously, the Ravens are 10-3, and the Jaguars just came off that L, going 8-5. Jaguars are hungry. Let's start off with the analyst. What is your prediction for this game?
I'll make mine short and sweet. I think the Jags are going to struggle against the Ravens defense. I think the Ravens have one of, if not the best defense in the league. And kind of what Jared was talking about earlier about Trevor Lawrence, he's had some struggles. And I'm just not sure if he's healthy right now. And that's not good for any quarterback, but especially the Jaguars in a tight playoff race with the Texans. Luckily, the Texans lost as well last week to the Jets. So, I mean, it's still neck and neck. And you kind of have the Colts in the back of their heads as well. So this is almost like a must-win for the Jags. But I'm afraid they're not going to get it done. The Jags defense has been shaky So I think Lamar has another really good game, and I think the final score is I'm going to say 31-21 Ravens. I think Jags will find a way to score a little bit, but the Ravens are gonna manhandle them. So I'm gonna go Ravens 31, Jags 21.
Yeah, and I think this Jaguars team struggles when ETN can't get anything going on the ground, and you're facing a Ravens defense who has done a phenomenal job protecting the run outside of the Rams last week with Kyron Williams. But, he did that on 25 carries, and, we'll see if they want to give ETN that much attention. We're not sure how healthy Trevor Lawrence is going to be for this game. I'm assuming he'll be much better than he was this week, but going into this game, I think the Ravens come out of this one as victors. And the last thing that the Ravens want to do is drop this game, because I believe they're playing San Francisco the weekend after the following week. So I've got the Ravens 28-23 beating the Jaguars. So we'll move in. Let's move to our next game, the Monday Night Football game. Now, this is a big one. This is the finalization of the Philadelphia Eagles gauntlet, but more importantly, the Seahawks gauntlet. We don't really want to – they're not a winning team anymore, but the Seahawks have played some very, very tough opponents their past 4 weeks, and this is the last of their tough games, I think, for the rest of the season, because they've already played San Francisco twice. But yeah, 10-3 Eagles versus the 6-7 Seahawks. What I have for this game is I think the Eagles come into this game pissed. I think they come in like a lightning rod. I don't believe that they're going to drop another game this season. They've got a pretty breezy schedule. Not to say that this game is not going to be close. I think it's going to be very similar to the Dallas versus Seattle game. I've got the Eagles winning this one 37-31, and a back and forth battle. I think Metcalf gets involved. I think they're going to attack that secondary. I don't see too much success in the ground for the Seahawks running backs, but I do expect Sirianni to come to this game and run the football. So expect some high production from Hurts, as well as from DeAndre Swift. But yeah, 37-31 Eagles for this game.
Well, I don't really have much to add to that. I feel like you just read my notes. The only thing different that I have here is that the Eagles are going to score 38 and the Seahawks are going to score 24. So, I mean, I can't agree more. I think the Eagles are pissed off. I think they're kind of looking for a break here. I think they see a good opportunity with the Seahawks.
Get-right game.
Yeah, kind of like a get-right game, but, I think the Eagles take care of business against the Seahawks. I kind of think the Seahawks are kind of fluttering away. They had a good chance. They had a good start. Now they're kind of being figured out. Earlier in the year we had them, or at least I had them a couple times in the lower part of my top 10 teams. But now, they're playing a real gauntlet of the schedule, and I think they're kind of looking at themselves like, we got a good team, but
we know who they are.
Yeah, we know who they are, and they kind of need a new quarterback. Like Geno Smith has kind of regressed back to where he was, and now they're kind of reeling. So they have a chance to make the playoffs, but with the Packers and the Rams being around, I don't really see them making it. The Packers and the Rams, to me, are a better team than the Seahawks. So
I think it would have been a lot clearer of an image if the Packers pulled out a win on Monday Night Football, which was
that's a very good point.
Not good for them, but I still think that the remainder of their schedule, they can escape and maybe make the playoffs. But yeah, I wanted to go to this last Saturday night football game and then circle back with kind of a funny question because of the slate that they have for the Saturday games. I thought it was hilarious. But the Saturday night football game is the Broncos at 7-6 versus the 9-4 Lions. This is a big game because I'm not fully confident that the Lions can come out of this game alive the way that they've been playing, the way their defense has been playing. The Broncos are one game away from catching up to the Chiefs, which sounds crazy. Obviously, I don't think they're going to catch up, but this is a game that the Broncos could screw around and win this game. So I'm actually going to go with them in this game, and I might sound crazy.
I am too.
Yeah, I've got the Broncos in a low-scoring affair per usual with the Broncos when they win against these winning opponents, 22-17. And I think Russell Wilson leads a late drive and gets in the end zone with Cortland Sutton to get them ahead by 5 points, and then the Lions don't have the timeouts to combat it. 22-17 Broncos. They moved to 8-6, and the Lions dropped their second or third straight.
Yeah, I mean, I've got relatively the same thing. I do think the Broncos are going to come out, but I kind of think they'll manhandle the Lions. Broncos are kind of getting to like a gritty football team. Their defense is playing really well. They got PS2 out there, and then they've got a pretty good defensive line. So I mean, they've been able to handle. They've handled the Chiefs. They've played a lot of games close. They started off horribly, but now they're kind of back in the swing of things of like, hey, we've got a real shot to win the division here. So, I think, like I said earlier, the Lions are frauds. There's no other way to put that. I kind of think they get Jared Goff, and I think the Broncos win this game, honestly, pretty handily. I'm going to say 24-10 Broncos.
Yeah, and it's just strange to me because – after that, I personally don't think the Lions will drop another one. I think they'll finish 11-6, but people will start freaking out, being
look at their schedule.
Like, oh my God, they're 9-5. I know it's like the Green Bay Packers twice. The Vikings twice, and then the Packers again, and there's one more game in there somewhere.
Yeah, here you go. So they're going to play Denver Saturday, and then Christmas Eve they play Minnesota. Then they play us, which I think we beat them pretty handily, and then they play Minnesota again. So I could see them finishing the season at 11-7. I mean, I think they could beat the Vikings.
Yeah, 11-6.
Those two wins will come out of the Vikings games, and then I do think they lose to Denver, and then they have to play us at home. And I mean, y'all been hearing this on this podcast. Dallas at home is a juggernaut. So, yeah.
I think that's a pretty. And that's fair for this team. It's not like this team is actually a 11-2 team. I don't think the NFL, that sounds crazy to me. But they are a good football team. But when they play good teams, even the bad ones, they've been mysteriously dropping them because their defense is fraudulent. But get a load of this. I thought this was crazy. This is the Saturday slate for this upcoming week. You've got the Minnesota Vikings versus the Cincinnati Bengals. That's backup quarterback Nick Mullins versus backup quarterback Jake Browning. Then moving into the Saturday afternoon game, you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Indianapolis Colts. That's backup quarterback Mitchell Trubisky versus backup quarterback Gardner Minshew. I mean, I want to know. So one, that's crazy. You have an entire slate, a day of football filled with backup quarterbacks. So enjoy your Saturday by watching all of the QB2s for your franchises combat each other. But I want to know, out of Jake Browning, Gardner Minshew, Nick Mullins, and Mitchell Trubisky, which out of those four do you think impresses you the most in this Saturday slate? Personally, it's just all obviously there's a better answer than most. Mitchell Trubisky's going to be at the bottom of that barrel. Nick Mullins is going to be at the bottom of that barrel. But Jake Browning and Minshew have kind of done their jobs as backups. Which one would you take over those two, Jake Browning and Gardner Minshew? I'm like,
I think my 2-minute drill kind of gave it away. I'd go Jake Browning. The last two games, like I said in my 2-minute drill, he's been an absolute dog for the Bengals, and he's kept them in playoff contention. But you can also argue the same thing for Gardner Minshew. I mean, he's doing his job. It just really makes you wonder where the Colts would be if they had AR-15 right now. I would love to see the Colts next year if they can keep everybody together. But also that also speaks to the Colts head coach. I mean, he's been real strong. I forget his name right now.
Shane Steichen?
Yes, Shane Steichen. He's been really good. But out of those quarterbacks, I'm taking Jake Browning, man. He's been a baller.
Now, I will say, with Gardner Minshew, he's gone through this game, obviously, with the Anthony Richardson injury to start the year. A first-year coach, the loss of Shaq Leonard, the loss of Stephon Gilmore coming into this game. Their owner tried to sell a dolphin or transport a whale somewhere. Jonathan Taylor's been in and out of injuries.
Well, now he's hurt again.
And you've got the Colts sitting at 7-5 or 7-6, whatever they may be right now, tied with the Houston Texans, who have had their stud, quote unquote, CJ Stroud MVP candidate. And you're like, wow, that's impressive. But then you go into Jake Browning's scenario, who arguably has a much easier setup than Gardner Minshew, but in my opinion has been more impressive than Gardner Minshew. I think Jake Browning has looked after that first W that he had, he walked to midfield with a stone cold face on. I was like, this dude's not worried about it at all. But he's got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, you know the roster, Joe Mixon, and of course Zach Taylor with a top 15-ish defense. So he's getting the job done. Maybe he gets into the playoffs. I don't think the Steelers have any momentum right now, but I really don't give a shit about any of those game predictions. But I just wanted to highlight the entire day is filled with backup quarterbacks.
The Colts are 7-6. They're 2-4 at home, 5-2 away, and they have a negative 16-point differential.
And they've beaten the Ravens. They've beaten the Ravens.
And on top of that, this AFC playoff picture is a mess. Is an absolute mess. From third seed, which is you have a third, fourth, and fifth seed, which is the Chiefs, Jags, and the Browns at 8-5. And then every single one underneath that, the Bills are 7-6. This is going from 11 out of 16 teams. The Bills are 7-6. The Bengals are 7-6. The Broncos are 7-6. The Texans are 7-6. The Colts are 7-6. The Steelers are 7-6. So you have 5 or 6 teams that are all in an absolute battle just to make the playoffs right now.
Yeah, and I believe on the other side of things, you've got in the NFC, you got a bunch of teams that are 6-7. And let me look at that right quick because let me see. Division, NFC. Yeah. We've got Green Bay at 6-7. You've got Tampa Bay, Atlanta, and New Orleans at 6-7. Los Angeles and Seattle at 6-7. So you have 6 teams at 6-7. It's a tight race, but
yeah, it's a wild. I mean, the wild card spots, and what's nice is they extended it. A couple of years ago, the wild card spots are they're in a race. I mean, for both sides. So
yeah, and I will admit, the NFC is a lot shittier of a 6th and 7th seed for sure. I mean, like that. Yeah. Those teams are pretty dog water. But all right, moving on into the main part of the podcast, and that is your Sunday Night Football Tracking the Boys recap here. Sunday Night Football on NBC. We got the Dallas Cowboys winning this game 33 to the Philadelphia Eagles 13 at AT&T Stadium.
Sweet victory.
Smoking that
beautiful game.
Beautiful game. A masterpiece from Dak Prescott, and an even more of a masterpiece by the Dallas Cowboys defense. And we'll touch into those offensive and defensive recaps. I'll begin us off with the offensive recap because what I like to do is, I don't want to steal every point, but I try and find the ones that that might be might be blooming, but maybe not noticeable. That flower underneath the bigger flower. I'm going to say that, but I might say something extremely obvious. But in my recap for this offense production is, I think it was a perfectly schemed first half from the play callers. Schottenheimer, Dak, McCarthy did a fantastic job in that first half. They controlled the time of possession. They established the ground game early on. It looked fantastic with the combination of Dowdle and Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard was getting outside the box. Dowdle was that gash back up the middle, getting 12 carries in this game, which is kind of exactly the area that I wanted him in. And then they converted in the red zone. That was all in the first half. And then Ferguson was involved. And again, this baby Kelsey agenda, I'm glazing over it right now because he told somebody, I think before the game, that he was going to hurdle a player. And little did we know he was actually going to hurdle another player in this game, which I think was a result of the run game. I think our run game was effective enough that we were able to focus on Ferguson, even though they may have had him kind of under control because he was such a focal point in the first matchup with them. And then I will say one more thing, and I'll leave the rest up for you, is the one turnover from Prescott, which resulted in the only Philadelphia offensive touchdown. I think they completely exposed this Philadelphia Eagles sloppy play against the grain of the refs. I mean, the refs were in there. We all saw the stat on Twitter. Most people did, that those refs that refereed that game were 7-0. Or the Eagles were 7-0 when they had those refs, and they averaged only 6 penalties. Well, the penalties were very even. I thought the Eagles looked very sloppy. The only call I disagreed with was the ticky-tack defensive pass interference comboed with the face mask. I thought that it wasn't a defensive pass interference, but I thought it was for sure a face mask, which you got to call those.
Definitely a face mask.
It's definitely a face. So all that, these bailout calls, you played sloppy. Philadelphia played like shit. I will admit. I mean, they looked terrible. But I know you have a comment you probably want to make, and I'll let you present it whenever you want. But we talked about it in the Twitter group chat about that turnover, that fumble from Prescott, and what he saw on that play. And I wanted to save that for you because I know you probably wanted to saw it. I'm pretty sure you were the one that sent it in the Twitter group chat. But yeah,
I wasn't, but I do know. I didn't see the play. I was busy at work today, but I'll just read off my notes. Jared kind of tried to say that he wasn't going to read them off, but he literally read some of my points. But for the offense, first off, completely out-schemed and out-coached the Philadelphia Eagles, which was great to see because I hate Nick Sirianni. I think he's a joke. You know, they act like they're the big bad boys of the NFC. They're just fake tough guys. And, you know, they got completely out-schemed and out-coached by Dallas. And mind you, this should have been the second game we beat them. Lost to a game of inches, you know, at their place, yada, yada. Yeah, we lost. But this game that we're talking about here, credit to the coaching staff, man. I mean, they, like Jared said, they came out and they came out in the first half ready to ball. And that's exactly what Dallas did. And they got everybody involved. Ferg led the team in receiving. Lamb right behind him with 7 yards and a touchdown. Cooks with a bunch of opening of seams. Like he's become a great asset to Lamb. And, you know, if you watch the all 22s and you watch the schemes, like Cooks is setting up Lamb for a lot of stuff, but he's also getting his targets as well. And then finally you saw Gallup make a play, which was nice, even though I have my mixed feelings about him. And then, like Jared said, I love seeing them getting Rico Dowdle involved. He's been a nice little hidden gem for Dallas. He's been our up-the-middle guy, and he's been really good at getting 3 or 4 yards of carry. And, you know, it's really been helping Pollard on the outside. So got the run game going early, which clearly helped Dak out during the game. And the other thing I have to say is the offensive line looked the best they have all season. And there was not a better time for them to play a great game versus that nasty front seven Eagles have. I mean, they basically took Jalen Carter and Davis to the woodshed.
Yeah.
I mean, they were not effective at all. The only time Dak got pressured really was that strip sack that Jared mentioned. But yeah, I mean, I said last week, the way Dallas would achieve a good offensive game is by spreading out this front seven and making them beat you with their secondary. And that, I mean, you'll see Dak's passing chart here in a second, but everything was short and sweet to the outside, get your playmakers the ball and let them make plays. And I mean, that's what you saw Ferg do with the hurdle. Lamb made a couple good plays. I mean, they were playing ball yesterday, Sunday, and that was beautiful to see. So that's my points for the offense. And, you know, just a great all-around offensive game from Dallas. And they you know, that's what you're looking for. We've been saying since the beginning of the season, you know, we want to see them open up the playbook. And I keep saying it. I have this comment week after week, but I mean, they are opening that playbook to the best of their ability to get their playmakers the ball. And that's been a major complaint with Dallas the last 3 seasons is like, why are we not just force feeding Lamb? And now that we are, you know, we're seeing the benefit of just getting our playmakers the ball because it opens everything else up. And I mean, that's just very evident.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I mean, our frustrations last year and those last 2-3 years was like, why aren't we getting the ball to our playmakers? Why are we forcing Gallup to get the ball when we know for a fact that he's washed? He's not the same player that he used to be.
Yeah,
however,
can't get separation.
However, and I will say the throw made him open, but we'll get into it later in the podcast on that massive, 35-plus yard throw from Dak Prescott. But also on that strip sack, like what we were talking about earlier, there was a play cooking up, if you will, not to be punny, but a play cooking up where we had a backside, basically wheel route. Cooks was wide open, and Dak had seen him. If he just had a split second longer on the film, it was there. But nonetheless, Dak played an excellent game. But let's move on to the defensive analysis, and I'll let you open up with the defense, and I'll kind of be short and sweet. But I'm sure you're gonna have everything you need to say about this defense because it was spectacular. But what were your thoughts on the defense in this game? only allowing 6 points of offensive points.
Yeah, and I'll quote exactly what I said last week. My mama's to learn your Cowboys was defense has got to play discipline. This RPO shit, they struggle with it, and I think that showed in a big way how well they've played. And I think the star of the night for Dallas on defense was Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah,
I mean, he
absolutely
played a great game against A.J. Brown. He locked him down. He gave up some underneath stuff later in the game that kind of inflated A.J. Brown's numbers. But for the most part, I mean, A.J. Brown was a non-factor when it mattered. And, he took A.J. Brown went after him before the game and called him old. And Gilmore was like, all right. So Gilmore at 33 is still playing great. The loss of Trayvon Diggs hurts. But, we've been able to – Bland has stepped up big time, but Gilmore is he's so technical, man. He plays great technical football as a cornerback, which is arguably one of the hardest positions to play in the NFL. And he locked down A.J. Brown. He looked really good. So I was really concerned on how the defense was going to play. But like I said, they needed to play disciplined, and it really showed up. My next point I have is the D-line. Not a lot of stats to show, but the D-line was there all night. In the run game, Osa Odighizuwa had a lot of very, really, really good pressures and, really disrupted the run game. And then Micah Parsons, per usual, man, he's an animal. So,
bullying Lane Johnson.
Yes. The next thing I have, the turnovers are back. 3 fumbles on the Eagles side, and they were like forceful fumbles too. One from Devontae Smith. I'm pretty sure it was Malik Hooker or Donovan Wilson. I can't remember. They got their hand in there and punched that ball out, making the tackle, and that basically sealed the game right there. So, like I said, Dallas is going to have to play disciplined football, and they were, they kind of got in their groove and they were ball hawking. So that's great to see from Dallas, and that's, they're going to have to do it again. I think they play Sunday at 3 against the Bills, and it's going to be a tough one. But if the defense can play like that and just play complementary football, man, that just makes Dallas
so hard
unbeatable. It's hard to beat, man. They when the defense is clicking, they look like a totally different football team. So
yeah, all good points. And that's basically what I had. I mean, no offensive touchdowns. I mean, that's impressive. No matter, that's a very hard game to lose, especially with the offensive arsenal that we come to every Sunday with Dak Prescott behind the helm, being that engine. And like you mentioned, the 3 turnovers forced in plus territory. And it was their 3 studs: A.J. Brown, Devontae, and Hurts, and limiting to DeAndre Swift to 11 carries for 39 yards. I mean, shit, sucked for my fantasy team, but whatever. Like, I'm down with it. Once the game starts, screw your fantasy team and screw your parlays. Cowboys dub. That's my philosophy. But yeah, I was very impressed that the sack that Parsons had in this game was against Lane Johnson, and he pile drived him into Jalen Hurts, and then went through Lane Johnson and tackled Jalen Hurts. I mean, I was like, wow, like this is the stuff that doesn't get talked about, because all game long you could see him forcing pressure. Lane Johnson was even false starting in multiple plays, and it drives me insane because nobody does it as obvious as him. I think the Eagles get away with a lot of in between the lines kind of stuff. And we got out of this game with just 1 tush push. And I can live with that. I can live with 1 harmless 3rd and 1 tush push. And then you get out of there alive. But yeah, like you mentioned, Stephon Gilmore, absolutely defensive player of the game. He played incredible. That 4th down stop was unbelievable. Especially was in zero coverage, man down. The run after the catch was limited, and then of course he was chirping at AJ all night, and he was backing it up. So we'll move on into our Dak on track segment here, and that wraps up our coverage of the recap of last week. And let me bring it up here. But this is a pretty good chart. It's a little different chart than what we've seen the past 4 weeks, obviously, but this is what we said was going to happen once we enter the gauntlet. Is you'll see a lot more of this kind of football, really complementing or kind of contradicting off what that opposing defense do, because these are all going to be playoff teams who we're going to be playing for the most part. I mean, unless Buffalo just decides to blow it. But this isn't a bad chart. I mean, lots of green dots. We have a couple down the middle of the field. We have a lot, like you mentioned, Ryan, towards the edges, at or around the line of scrimmage, really playing those out, spreading them out, getting those. I think a lot of those were screen passes, swing passes and stuff, and they worked. They did a great job. We made some great play calls here, but, great numbers here. No turnovers, even though the CPOE was negative. But here's the stat line if you're listening. 24 completions out of 39 attempts, 271 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. But yeah, what's your analysis on the chart and your letter grade, and I'll follow it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I was saying earlier about, how Dallas schemed this game is exactly what I said. They had to spread out that front seven, and the way they did that is that's why there's so many at the line of scrimmage, is they were getting their playmakers the ball and saying, hey, make the defensive backs beat you. And that's how people have been beating the Eagles. I mean, if you look at how the 49ers did it, Devo had a crazy game. Well, like we mentioned, a lot of those were close or behind the line of scrimmage. So, Dak, that's why Dak's passing chart looks like this, and then he has a couple deep bombs in there. But, in terms of letter grade, I have to give him an A+. I mean, he took care of business at home. And in a divisional game, he couldn't have played any better. Besides the strip sack where he was trying to look for that deep ball, he couldn't have played any better. Third down, he was, like I've been saying, third down king. He is just a great quarterback on third down. And it really showed this game too. So very solid performance from Dak.
Yeah, and I want to compliment your confidence in Dak, because obviously we were all together watching this game at your house, which thank you for hosting. We made some incredible wings on the Traeger. But, we're sitting there, and every third down, you look directly at me like that Shrek meme and smiled, and you're like, what the hell you worried for? Like,
I'm telling you.
Don't you know who he is? And he is the third down king, and absolutely. And I wish I had as high as a grade as you, but mine's a little bit lower. It's an A-. And it's honestly because after I looked at the chart, I was like, I wish I could have seen a little bit more. But really, this isn't a bad grade at all. I like to put a number on things. I like a 92.9. That's the way I envisioned it when I thought of his play. I said 92.9 overall, like a little quarterback grade there from myself, from the Rook. The reason for that is, he played an incredible first half, but the offense stalled in the second half, and it started to worry me. But when it counted, Dak made the plays. He avoided the pressure. He utilized his weapons and committed 0 turnovers, through the air, besides that one fumble, which was just pretty unfortunate, honestly. I really didn't think it's a fumble. We haven't seen a Dak Prescott fumble in a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of the point I made to the Leo Nazis. I've been saying he's in the last 7 games. If you go look at his stats, he's 28 touchdowns and 3 turnovers. So
yeah, and I had people tell me, I'm just not really impressed with what he's, with that stat line, because with his arsenal, I was like, what? What? I had somebody tell me that 15 other quarterbacks could do what he's doing. I said, you're telling me 15 other quarterbacks can throw 28 touchdowns and 3 picks?
Yeah, there's only one guy that comes to mind that I can think of that finished a season like that, and that was Aaron Rodgers.
Oh.
It was Aaron Rodgers with that 40-4 season he had a couple years ago.
That's exactly what I thought. Same offense, Might have been, was it the same coach? I don't know if it was.
I can't remember that. That was in that shady area where I think they got rid of McCarthy, or that was the last year with McCarthy. I can't remember.
Yeah. So, and my favorite part about this, and this will conclude the Dak on Track segment, and we'll move on to the Rooks looks, is that we went into this game, into the gauntlet, and people said, "Oh, y'all better be ready. Y'all about to play some real teams now, because all we've seen y'all play is some scrubs." And we were like, we're going home. We should have beat the Eagles the first time. We beat the brakes off of them so bad that people are calling the Eagles frauds and that they weren't worth the time. And of course, the Dallas Cowboys would beat them. You want to talk about shattering a script? My God. Yeah. Y'all were begging us that Jalen Hurts was the MVP of the league and that they were like that. And we walked in there, should have beat them the first time. And y'all said, well, if ifs and buts were honey nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. And we said, we told you so in this game. And they didn't even move the football on us. I was like, really? Now we went from the gauntlet to, of course, y'all would beat the Eagles at home. They're frauds. They're not as good as they say they are. They've been playing poor all year, which we've said. And then y'all are going to move and play a struggling Buffalo Bills team. You're going to beat them. They're 7-7. And then you're going to move into the Miami game, and they're going to say the Miami team was frauds this entire time. What are you talking about? And then you're going to go into the Detroit game, and they're going to say they're frauds. Like, everybody we beat, we will never get the benefit of the doubt. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that the gauntlet, once it's over, will no longer be the gauntlet to the mainstream media. And best believe right here on the Track podcast, we'll be shattering that script every freaking week. But
that's ridiculous. It's just a classic approach for people that are Dallas haters. It's like when the moment that we beat a bad team, you say, "Oh, there's a bunch of scrubs," and then the minute we beat, the team that's 10-2, they're no longer good. So, I mean, I think the Eagles are a good football team. They're having their struggles. They're not as good as they were last year, but they are, in fact, 10-2.
They're a contender.
So, yes,
they're an absolute contender. All right, well, let's move into the Rooks looks, and then we'll finish it off with our Cowboys at Bills predictions. All right, so let's go with our Week 14 recap. Start this one off. I had a pretty decent week, but I had to take one off because he wasn't able to play. It was Taysom Hill. He was questionable throughout the week, but he didn't practice, so he didn't make my Rooks looks for that Sunday. But regardless, I told everybody to start Rashee Rice, Kansas City wide receiver versus Buffalo. He ended up having 18.20 PPR points, 7 receptions, 72 yards, and a touchdown. He did have a fumble loss, though, but a good game from him. I told everybody to sit DK Metcalf, Seattle wide receiver versus the 49ers. He got bullied last time by Chardavius Ward. He only had 2 catches on 5 targets for 52 yards and a touchdown, but he had that touchdown, which, jolted his points up to 13.2 PPR, which is usually what his projection averages. So I put him in a gray area there. And then I told everybody to sit Calvin Ridley, the Jacksonville wide receiver versus Cleveland. I didn't think this one made much sense with the banged up Trevor Lawrence, like we mentioned earlier, but 9.30 PPR points, 4 out of 13 targets, 53 yards. So the volume was there, but this is not the first time that he's had 10 plus targets and they weren't able to connect on at least 50% of those targets. Then moving into the sleeper, this one's my favorite because in 2016, we loved our running back. And I told everybody to start Ezekiel Elliott, getting that primetime starting role. New England running back versus Pittsburgh, 27.0 PPR points, 22 carries, 68 yards. All of a sudden, he's better than Michael Gallup at receiving with 7 receptions, 72 yards, and a touchdown. And this is funny. If you're not familiar with free agency acquisitional bidding in fantasy football, where you have a budget and you can bid on a player that you want, I was fried in the league at 4-9, and I needed a running back, and I had a lot of FAAB is the acronym for that. I spent $75, which is a shit ton. That's more than half of your budget on Ezekiel Elliott, and people were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Bro, I'm out of playoffs. I'm spending money on that motherfucker right there, and I'm putting him in my starting lineup," which I ended up putting him on my bench. So it was all for naught, but it's a fun troll. But yeah, sleeper worked out well. All right, week 15, start him, sit him. Start Javonte Williams, Denver running back versus Detroit. We mentioned that Detroit was struggling. Javonte's been getting 15-plus carries a game. And I think this could be a big one. I think he finds the end zone here and maybe a 25-yard run. Let's hope. Start Derrick Henry, Tennessee running back versus Houston. A lot of people might already have Derrick Henry in their starting lineup, but he is a top 5 player all time versus the Houston Texans for some strange reason. He goes nuts against the AFC South. So expect a large workload. They're excited after that Will Levis comeback victory. Here's a record for the day for you. Teams that were down 14 with less than 5 minutes left are 0 and 767. But after last night, Will Levis made them 1 and 7 and 600. 1 and 700 and 600. I can't even say the fucking numbers. 767. 1 and 67.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. That's a crazy record. Okay, sit Kyler Murray, Arizona quarterback versus San Francisco. I don't expect much here. This is a tanking team. Not sure San Francisco wants to get in the way of spoiling San Francisco, or Arizona wants to get in the way of spoiling San Francisco. The minimal weapons, the run game will be eliminated. We just kind of pray that Kyler Murray gets out of this game healthy. Sit Ezekiel Elliott, New England running back versus Kansas City. I think the Chiefs are absolutely livid from their previous game. And I expect zero production from the New England offense as a whole. So I don't think you're going to get a lot of production at Ezekiel Elliott. And then my sleeper of the week is David Njoku, the Cleveland tight end versus Chicago. Flacco's the perfect veteran, like I mentioned before in the podcast, and Njoku is a game changer when involved. So he's an absolute unit if you look at him. I mean, I think him and Odell Beckham Jr. said what's up to each other pregame. Oh, my God. I mean, Njoku is an absolute mammoth of a man.
He's huge.
Yeah, I mean, he's ginormous. Okay. It was my Rooks Looks Stardom Situm, and it's time to get into the heave of the week, presented to you by Dakota Rain Prescott. And this one, I know I'm doing a lot of Dallas stuff, but
no, you got to. We just beat the Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect shadow the script narrative. And there was another one that I almost did, thanks to the medical guy who wanted me to do it. But I ended up going with this one because this was just kind of like put your little midsection on the table and say, what's up with it though? You know, kind of just, hey, did you forget who I am? It's 3rd and 5. We're up by 27 or 17 points or whatever. 5 minutes to go. Doesn't matter. I'm still slinging this hoe.
Well, if you look at it, this is clearly man.
Yes. And what's crazy about this is and we'll get to it in the play-by-play, but all right, here we go. 30-13 ball game here. Philadelphia down the 10-2 team. If they lose this game, they could tie the standings, and Dallas would actually become the 2nd seed. But it's 3rd and 5, 5 minutes left in the game. They line up in a spread formation with a single backfield and the shotgun. Dak Prescott does the play action. He finds some pressure, gets it away. And a great catch by the lone gun, Michael Gallup, as he mentioned there in the podcast. But Michael Gallup with the toe-tapping grab, Dak Prescott with the incredible throw. The throw was what made him open, and that was an incredible 35-foot bomb there. I was highly impressed. I about jumped out of my seat watching that play. It was a fantastic ball. It was a fantastic catch, and it was an absolute, hey, look who's back. Shady's back. Villain mode activated. Dak Prescott. He's your heave of the week. And now we get into our predictions for week 15. The 10-3 Dallas Cowboys take on the 7-6 Buffalo Bills at Orchard Park, 3:25 p.m. on Fox. Ryan, what are our keys to success for this game? Followed by keys to success. We'll do your mamas. We'll do our mamas, don't you Cowboys, and then we'll do predictions. But keys to success.
Man, I really feel like this is going to be the hardest game.
I agree.
This is it's going to be cold. It's going to be windy, and Dallas has been really good at home, but these games away, they haven't played an away game like this all year. They did against Philadelphia, but I feel like since they play there 2 times a year, a lot of the guys that are on Dallas, they're kind of used to playing in the bank, in Philadelphia. But this game right here is going to be truly walking into enemy territory, So I feel like for the offense, it's going to take a couple of adjustments. Maybe do the same thing that they did against Philadelphia, keep it short and sweet, and try and figure out a run game. So that Bills defense is on and off. I think they're a good defense, but I do think that Dallas can take advantage of them maybe in the short game, and then eventually find those deep balls like Jared just did with the heave of the week later on in the game. So I'm going to look for like a disciplined strategy on the offensive side of the ball of, just getting Dak in rhythm in the cold, finding those seams, looking for CeeDee Lamb early, and then just executing a solid game plan like so. So I'll save my defensive points, but what do you got for offense?
Yeah, my keys to success for the offense, is to run outside the tackles. I think when we thrive our best is when we're utilizing our speed, and having those, reverse plays and those outside the tackle runs with Pollard, with Kevontae Turpin, even sometimes CeeDee Lamb. I think getting tricky like that, and especially in a windy environment, can really elevate your offense and counter the crazy conditions of Buffalo, New York. So I think that's a big one. I think keeping Dowdle inside at that 30% snap percentage rate could really benefit like it did against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then my fourth one, depending on the weather, let Dak have control. Continue to let Dak have control. Jake Ferguson, Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb need to have a heavy involvement if we're going to be able to pass in this game more than not. And I think the most important thing of the offense is to manage the time of possession. By far, I think keeping Josh Allen off the field is going to be elemental to success in this game. And then my defensive keys to success, and then I'll give it back to you, is limit Josh Allen to be confined inside the pocket and generate some pressure quickly. Of course, he's going to be able to run around a little bit, but safeties have to play very smart over the top with Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs. There's always going to be that one or two throws from Josh Allen that are going to scare the living crap out of you. And Gabriel Davis can sneak behind you sometimes. So a lot like Gallup. But, Gabriel Davis and Diggs, they're going to have to be contained. Dalton Kincaid, Jalen Hurts are going to have to step up because Kincaid is an elemental piece to this offense. And
yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, that's my keys to success on both sides of the ball. And then what are your defensive keys to success?
Well, I'm going to ask you first. Do you think they put Gilmore on Diggs, or do you think they put Bland on Diggs?
Honestly, I think after the game that Gilmore just had, I think it'd be more smart to put Gilmore on Diggs. However, I really don't think they're going to care either way. I think both are going to be following not following. I think both are going to be alternating, and they're just going to line up on one side of the field. They may look at the film and go, Josh Allen throws worse to the left than he does to the right, and then play it that way. Yeah. They could go advanced analytics there. But, I don't think anybody in particular is going to follow Diggs. But if I had to guess, I would say put the veteran on him. Diggs and Gilmore have probably gone up against each other quite a bit, being in the AFC. So, but that's what I would say. What do you think?
I think, that's kind of the point I was going to make, is I think they end up putting Gilmore on Diggs, maybe because Gilmore has seen him more. Yeah. So, he's game planned against him a couple times. And then I think you're right. I don't think they're going to care that much if Bland ends up on him. But yeah, my keys are kind of the same as the Eagles game almost. It's like if we're going to win, they're going to have to play disciplined football in terms of keeping Allen in the pocket and creating pressure. I think that I don't think the Bills' offensive line is great. So I do think that you'll see Parsons kind of emerge in this game a little bit more. He's used to playing in the cold, being at Penn State.
It's a good point.
I do think that he will be a little bit more active in this game. I say more active. I mean, on the stat sheet, he's always nobody gives him credit, but he's always a baller, even when he doesn't get a sack. I mean, he's always like right in the quarterback's face every throw. So I think that's the key. I think defensively, they're gonna have to shut down Allen's legs, and that's the only thing that scares me. It's kind of like what I said in week 1 when we played Daniel Jones, even though that never came to fruition. But sometimes that's how Dallas gets beat is we pin our hairs, pin our hair back and start rushing the quarterback, and we get a little, I forgot the word.
We don't have the ability to.
We get honed in on the quarterback, and then all of a sudden the quarterback breaks loose, and now we're all like, oh crap, what are we going to do? So I think that's where it comes from. Disciplined football on the defensive side, let your offense work, and I think we'll come out okay. I'm just really nervous about the weather and the cold. I don't know. It's very uncommon to see Dallas playing cold games like this. So
now, if I was the medical guy, I'd be making that point as well. But yeah, we don't do very great against dual threat quarterbacks, although we just played Jalen Hurts and shut him down. But historically, we don't do that great against scrambling quarterbacks. It's cold and windy, and it's an away game. So it's going to be a tough challenge for the Dallas Cowboys. But let's go into our predictions. But we'll start off with our Mamas Don't Let You Cowboys, and then followed by your prediction. Actually, let's do this. Prediction followed up with your Mamas Don't Let You Cowboys. That's probably the easiest way to do it, which is what we've been doing all along.
Well, I'm going to do it the other way because mine leads into my prediction.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, mine is Mama. That's exactly what I've been saying. Mamas don't let your Cowboys get affected by the cold weather. So, everything I just said is my prediction. I'm a little nervous about it, but I will say I do think this is going to be a close game. I'm very kind of back and forth on it. I'm not entirely sure, but I do see Dallas winning this game 24-21.
We have the exact same Mamas Don't Let You Cowboys. I'm not even going to kid. Mine was Mamas Don't Let You Cowboys be babies about the weather. Go in there and handle your business. Don't be that soft team. It doesn't matter if it's rain, sleet, or snow. Like Mike Parsons said,
we're ready to go.
Season, rain, sleet, or snow, we coming. We. I was like, okay, that'll get you hyped. But yeah, that, and then I think another one would be Mamas Don't Let You Cowboys let Josh Allen cook with his legs. But if the Cowboys go in there and they do their job, they limit turnovers, they handle time of possession, controlling the clock, the defense does its thing, playing the way they're supposed to. I think this is a scrappy one, but the Dallas Cowboys would win this game 23-19. The Bills are always in that weird score margin, so that's why I put 19 there. You never know how they're going to get their points. But yeah, the weather is always in question. Injuries may impact the Cowboys negatively with the loss of Jonathan Hankins for a couple weeks, but Dak plays his best ball when the Cowboys, or if Dak plays his best ball, the Cowboys secure a close one away. All right. Well, let's wrap this podcast up with our records of the week, and then I'll shout out some of our socials, and we'll move on into the rest of the week as we get closer into Christmas. But here we go. TRAK records of the week. This is from inspiring tunes to compelling statistics. It's worth putting on the record. And I actually – and I'm going to wait till you do yours, so I hope I don't pick the same one as you. I have a second one that I literally just thought about, but it's perfect for the time of year. But the one I have is Brandon Aubrey. He is 30 of 30 on field goals so far this year. So, yeah, Sunday night, Brandon Aubrey was 4 out of 4 on field goals, making it from 60 yards, 59 yards, 50, and 45. And he's 30 out of 30 on the season in his first year in the NFL. It's truly remarkable. Brandon Aubrey, you're my record of the week. And I'll let you do yours. But if it's the same one as the one I'm thinking, which it very well could be since we seem to have been thinking just alike in this podcast, I'll obviously hold it off. But what is your TRAK record of the week?
Well, to add to yours, it's so nice to have a kicker on Dallas again that is actually you don't have to sit there and be like, he's going to miss this 25-yard field goal. I still have the PTSD, but
yeah, you can actually go take a piss and come back, and it's 3 points added.
Yeah. So my record of the week, I kind of busted it earlier, and I always kind of pick one as we go through the podcast, but I think it's Dak's last 7 games with the 28 to whatever I said, 28 to 2 intercept. Basically, since the 49ers game, Dak has thrown 1 billion touchdowns and 2 picks. So I think that I think the commercial that we showed at the beginning of this perfectly wraps up my record of the week. It's like, yeah, like keep talking shit. Like I remember what everybody said about the 10 interceptions. Like, all right, yeah, I got you. All right, fine. Like I'll show you. So yeah, we've been talking about it. I love to see him in villain mode, and he's taken that to a whole different level this year. So that's my record of the week, and it goes right in line with how we started the podcast. So.
Oh yeah, here we go. All right, we're gonna share this one because I know you're gonna agree. But this is I want to put this one on the record for sure. Oh, that was cool. I never even tried that before. Is Cody Johnson's Christmas performance with the country music?
I can't wait for that.
I heard "I'll Be Home for Christmas" kind of like tune-up or whatever, the little snippet part of it, and he's got the mic or whatever and going after it, and I was like, dang, bro, this is I'm still listening to it. I listened to it on the way to work and on the way back, but he does a phenomenal job again, going to do these award shows and performing for them and all this kind of stuff, and like you always say, and getting nominated for all these awards and not winning a thing, and it's very annoying because he's by far the best vocalist and performer probably in real pure country music to this day.
Yeah. To add to that, I saw a freaking post on Facebook or something. Somebody called him mainstream country, and I about lost it. I was like, what?
Yeah, he would kill you if he heard that, probably. Yeah. Me or mine.
I was like, mainstream country to me is like Morgan Wallen. I'm just kidding. Morgan Wallen and like Luke Bryan and stuff. I'm like, you got an actual cowboy out there that's making. Like if you go listen to his new album, it's legitimate country music.
Yeah, you might have to simmer down there. Your wife's going to pop into the podcast episode. What the hell you say about Morgan Wallen?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Morgan Wallen's great too. But yeah, he's definitely mainstream. But yeah, I figured that's a good one to share.
That is. He plays well, for all of you podcast listeners, he'll be playing tomorrow, December 13th on CMAs. He's doing like a Christmas special. I will be tuning in. I'm going
to have to as well. I want to make it feel more like Christmas around this new crib. Okay. So, and I should always be saying this at the beginning of the podcast, but this was track 26, the Lightskin War Volume 2. If you are a first-time listener and you made it all the way to the end, be sure to download, subscribe, follow, do everything in between, whatever platform you listen on, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify to YouTube to damn iHeartRadio. If you find us on there, download, subscribe, follow, maybe even turn on your notifications if you want to listen to some real Shattering the Script every week, every Wednesday. But we are happy to give it to you straight below. If you're watching, we have our Instagram and TikTok at TRAK.pod, Twitter/X. We've got the TRAK Pod. The link tree is in all of our bios on Instagram, Twitter, and all the rest of the socials. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube primarily. So tune in for another Shatter the Script next Wednesday, and we'll get closer to Christmas, and then we'll communicate on how we're going to handle our schedule for Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Go watch some of his Christmas Carol with your family. Tune into the Cody Johnson Show, and go Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? Let's go. Big game Sunday.
How about them Eagles?